Welcome, everyone. We're diving deep into Nissan today.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by this whole transformation they're going for.
It's a big one for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely, going from like a traditional car company to like this leader in, electrification.
Yeah, they really want to be at the forefront of innovation, it seems.
And they're trying to shape the future of mobility.
Yeah.
Right, it's not just about reacting to the industry.
That's the key takeaway here. It's about being proactive. And we're going to see how they plan to tackle some of the big challenges. Like, the competition's getting pretty intense.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Markets are getting more and more fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
And customer needs, well, those are changing all the time. It's like a whole new ballgame out there.
So how's Nissan going to handle all of this globally? They're a global company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are they like tailoring their strategies to different regions?
They have to. One size doesn't fit all anymore. Take the US, for example. There's this huge demand for SUVs and pickup trucks.
Yeah.
So Nissan's adjusting what they offer to match that. But then you look at Europe.
Totally different.
They're all about EVs over there. So Nissan's doubling down on EV investments in Europe.
It makes sense to adapt to the local trends, right?
It makes perfect sense.
What about China? They're becoming like a powerhouse in the EV market.
Absolutely. And Nissan knows that. They have to be competitive there, not just for the domestic market,
Right.
but also for potential exports. And it's not just those major players.
Right.
They also see potential for EVs and their e-power vehicles in ASEAN.
Wow. So they're really juggling a lot of different priorities across the globe.
It's a balancing act for sure.
Okay, well, let's shift gears a bit and talk about their financials. We've got their 2024 integrated report here, and it highlights some pretty interesting numbers.
Yeah, let's dive into those.
So their net sales hit $12,685.7 billion.
That's a big number.
It is. And they achieved an operating income of $568.7 billion.
Not bad at all.
Leading to a net income of $426.6 billion. So we're seeing some significant improvements here. What do you think drove this turnaround?
Their Nissan NXT plan played a big role.
Right.
Streamlining operations, strategic investments, they did what they had to do to get back to profitability.
Right.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
While these numbers show positive momentum, Nissan knows there's still work to be done.
So they're not getting complacent.
Not at all.
I do see that their operating profit margin has improved quite a bit.
For sure.
That kind of suggests that their focus on financial discipline is actually paying off, right?
It does. But they also acknowledge that their current price-to-book ratio, or PDR, doesn't quite reflect their true potential yet.
So, like, their stock price isn't catching up to their value.
Exactly. Think of it like their assets and earnings are worth more than what the market's saying.
Interesting. So how are they planning to address that?
They're laser-focused on improving key performance indicators, those KPIs you always hear about. They want to make themselves even more attractive to investors.
So it's not just about making a profit.
Yeah.
It's about how the market perceives that performance.
Absolutely. You got to play the game.
So what are they doing to create value for their shareholders going forward?
Well, they're aiming for a total shareholder return of over 30%.
Wow, that's pretty ambitious.
Especially in this industry. This combines dividends, those payments to shareholders,
Right.
and share buybacks, where they actually repurchase their own shares.
To boost the value of the remaining ones.
Exactly.
So even with all these big plans for growth, they're still committed to rewarding their shareholders.
Absolutely. Maintaining positive free cash flow is a priority for them. They can fund those dividends and share buybacks, even while investing heavily in, you guessed it, electrification.
Got it.
And they're planning gradual increases in those dividends per share.
Which is good news for investors, right?
Especially those looking for those consistent returns.
Yeah. It sounds like a really well-structured approach. What about strategic partnerships?
Oh, yeah, they're exploring all options.
And even mergers and acquisitions to create more value.
They're considering everything, even if it means a one-time cash outlay for a new capital alliance.
So they're willing to make those big moves if necessary.
If the opportunity's right. They're aiming for a healthy net cash level of $1 trillion. That shows they're committed to financial stability and have the resources for those bold moves.
So they're being strategic, not just throwing money around.
Exactly. Smart choices.
Now let's talk about how they plan to grow those different business segments we discussed.
Let's get into it.
How are they tackling those regional challenges and taking advantage of the opportunities?
That's where the ARC comes in, their brand new business plan.
Okay, tell me more.
It builds on the foundation of Nissan NXT. Think of it as a bridge.
A bridge.
Between where they are now
Uh-huh.
and their long-term vision. Nissan Ambition 2030.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break down the arc for me. What are the key elements?
Well, it's all about boosting their competitiveness and creating new value, especially with all that rising competition in the auto industry.
Makes sense.
They want to increase sales volume, enhance EV competitiveness, leverage strategic partnerships, and of course, maintain that strong financial discipline we talked about.
That sounds like they have a lot on their plate.
They do, but they seem ready for the challenge.
So what are some specific things they're doing to put the arc into action?
One major focus is, you guessed it, electrification. They're planning to invest heavily, over $400 billion
Wow,
in battery facilities.
that's a huge investment.
It is. This signals their serious commitment to EVs.
They're going all in on the electric future.
You could say that. And they have some ambitious goals.
Like what?
They're targeting a 30% reduction in the cost of their next generation EVs compared to the Aria model.
That's a pretty big cost reduction.
Especially considering the gap between EVs and traditional vehicles right now.
Mhm.
And here's the big one. They want to achieve cost parity between EVs and ICE vehicles by 2030.
Wow, that's a bold target. How do they plan to make that happen?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach. They're investing heavily in R&D for next-generation battery technologies. Think solid-state batteries.
Those are like the holy grail of EV technology.
Exactly. Lighter, safer, more energy-dense than current lithium-ion batteries.
So they're really pushing the boundaries of battery technology. But what about their existing manufacturing operations?
Right.
How are they adapting to produce these new EVs?
That's where their Nissan Intelligent Factory concept comes in.
Intelligent factory. What's that?
It's a new approach to manufacturing, integrating innovative technologies to support the production of next-generation vehicles, EVs included. They're bringing their factories into the 21st century.
So they're modernizing their facilities.
Exactly. Crucial for efficiency and keeping up with all the advancements.
Makes sense. Where are they implementing these intelligent factories?
It all started at their Tochigi plant in Japan back in fiscal year 2021. And the plan is to expand this concept to their major production bases worldwide.
So a gradual rollout.
Step by step.
So they're not just building new factories, they're transforming their existing ones.
Making them more efficient, more sustainable, and future-ready.
Smart move. What other initiatives are they pursuing on the manufacturing front?
They're also pioneering something called EV360.
EV360.
It's a unique EV manufacturing hub, combines mobility and energy management, creates a fully integrated production and services ecosystem.
Sounds pretty comprehensive.
It is, like a model for the factory of the future, intertwined with the surrounding community and energy infrastructure.
That's an interesting concept. Where is this EV360 hub located?
It was first launched at their Sunderland plant in the UK. Back in fiscal year 2021, they're planning to introduce it at their Tochigi plant in fiscal 2025, and eventually expand it to other major production sites in Japan and the US.
Taking it global.
Exactly.
It's clear they're not holding back on innovation. They're going all in on electrification and being very strategic about how they're doing it.
They are leveraging their strengths, embracing collaboration, investing in R&D.
Well, it's not just about the technology and manufacturing.
Got it.
Yeah.
They're also transforming their corporate culture to be more agile, more innovative, and you guessed it, more people-centric.
Now that's something I definitely want to hear more about.
Yeah.
Let's dig into that cultural transformation when we continue our deep dive.
Sounds good to me. Let's take a quick break.
So we're back, and I want to circle back to the ARC for a sec. You mentioned they're aiming for like a balanced product portfolio
Right.
with both EVs and traditional IC vehicles. Why is that?
Well, they recognize that the world isn't shifting to EVs at the same pace everywhere.
Okay.
So offering a mix lets them cater to a wider range of customer,
Yeah.
meet them where they are in their transition to electric. It's like building a bridge to the future.
Right, making sure everyone can cross at their own speed.
Exactly.
Good analogy. So it's about providing options for everyone, those who are ready for all electric and those who aren't quite there yet.
Makes sense. Right.
Yeah, it does. But didn't you also mention they're aiming for a big increase in sales volume?
Yeah.
How does that fit in?
Good question. So they're targeting an increase of 1 million units in annual sales by the end of fiscal 2026.
Ambitious.
To achieve this, they're planning to launch 30 new models.
Wow, 30.
16 electrified and 14 internal combustion.
So they're committed to both electrification and serving those who still prefer traditional vehicles.
It's about balance.
Makes sense. What kinds of electrified models are they planning?
Oh, they're covering the whole spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
From fully electric BEVs like the Aria to their e-power system.
Remind me how that works again?
So it's pretty cool, actually. It uses a gasoline engine to charge the battery.
No need to plug in.
No plug-in needed. And of course, they're offering plug-in hybrid electric vehicles too, PHEVs.
There's a lot of PHEVs.
This diversity gives them the flexibility to cater to different markets.
Smart. They're really positioning themselves strategically to meet a variety of market needs and customer preferences.
For sure.
But with all this focus on EVs, what about the cost of battery production? How are they managing that?
Partnerships are key here.
Okay.
They're investing over $400 billion in battery facilities and collaborating with various partners like AESC, CATL, VEJ, and Sunwoda.
Oh, Manny.
These partnerships ensure a stable and cost-effective supply of batteries, which is crucial for scaling up EV production.
So they're not going it alone.
Not at all. Leveraging expertise to accelerate their EV plans.
Makes sense. But it's not just about building more batteries, right? It's about making them more efficient and affordable, too.
Absolutely. Remember their goal of achieving cost parity between EVs and ICE vehicles by 2030?
Yeah.
That's a big work.
Huge. What are they doing to make that happen?
Multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
First, heavy investment in R&D for next-generation battery technologies.
Right.
Solid-state batteries.
Right. They game changers.
Lighter, safer, potentially more energy-dense than the current lithium-ion batteries.
When do they expect to actually use those in their vehicles?
Aiming to introduce them in new EVs by fiscal year 2028.
Okay.
But they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
What else?
Exploring lithium iron phosphate batteries too, LFP batteries.
Those are known for being cost-effective.
Exactly.
Right.
Expected to be used in mini vehicles in Japan.
So they're really exploring different battery technologies, finding the best fit for each market and vehicle segment.
It's a tailored battery strategy.
I like that. And it's not just about the battery itself, right? They're thinking about the whole EV ecosystem.
You got it.
What else are they doing?
Planning to launch Nissan Energy Storage in fiscal 2025.
What's that?
It's a residential system for managing, charging, and storing energy.
Interesting.
Essentially integrating EVs into homes and lives as part of a larger energy network.
So they're not just selling cars, they're offering energy solutions.
Yeah. Exactly. And they're even considering expanding into commercial energy storage systems, potentially offering services like seamless plug-and-charge for businesses.
So EVs is more than just transportation.
They see them as mobile power sources, revolutionizing how we generate, store, and use energy.
That's pretty forward-thinking. But let's go back to manufacturing for a minute. How are they adapting their existing factories to produce these new technologically advanced EVs?
Nissan Intelligent Factory concept is central to that.
Right, you mentioned that earlier.
Integrates innovative technologies to support next-generation vehicle production, EVs included, and it contributes to their carbon neutrality goal.
So they're upgrading their factories for a smarter and more sustainable future. Can you give me an example of what these intelligent factories actually look like?
Think advanced automation, data analytics, digitalization.
Oh, wow.
To optimize every step of the production process. This concept was first implemented at their Tochigi plant in Japan in fiscal year 2021, and they're gradually rolling it out to their other major production bases worldwide.
Sounds like significant investments
It is.
to modernize their manufacturing capabilities. What other initiatives are they pursuing on the manufacturing front?
They're also pioneering EV360.
Right, the model for the factory of the future.
Combines production with energy management and services, designed to be a model for sustainable and localized manufacturing, intertwined with the community and energy infrastructure.
Where is this hub located?
Initially launched at their Sunderland plant in the UK in fiscal year 2021. They plan to introduce it at their Tochigi plant in fiscal 2025, and then extend to other key production sites in Japan and the US.
Global rollout.
Yep.
It's clear Nissan is committed to innovation across its entire business. Their electrification efforts are impressive, and their approach to manufacturing is equally forward-thinking.
They're not just adapting to the changes, they're trying to lead the charge.
Right. But as you mentioned earlier, it's not just about technology and manufacturing. It's about the people, too.
That's right.
Let's talk about that cultural transformation. They're aiming to become more agile, innovative, and people-centric. How are they actually doing that?
They launched a new initiative called Our Nissan. It's focused on driving this cultural shift.
Our Nissan.
Built on 3 key pillars: Nissan Way, Nissan Leadership Way, and Our Promise.
What do those mean?
Nissan Way encompasses their core values and action guidelines. It emphasizes customer focus, accountability, a proactive mindset.
How they approach their work.
Exactly. Then there's Nissan Leadership Way. It outlines the behaviors expected of their leaders,
Makes sense.
focusing on collaboration, empathy, a commitment to developing their teams.
Okay.
And lastly, our promise. That's their employee value proposition.
Meaning,
Creating a workplace where everyone feels valued, supported, and empowered to make a difference.
sounds like they're putting a lot of effort into creating a positive and engaging work environment.
They are. They've also been actively working to improve employee engagement, monitoring it through annual surveys and taking steps to address any concerns raised by their workforce.
Good to hear they're taking employee feedback seriously. But with all these changes and investments, how are they making sure they remain financially sustainable? A people-centric culture doesn't come cheap.
Very true. They are maintaining a laser focus on financial discipline, aiming to keep their capital expenditure, or CapEx, and R&D spending within a range of 7% to 8% of their net revenue.
So being prudent with their spending.
Absolutely. They know long-term success requires financial health. They're targeting an operating profit margin of over 6% by fiscal year 2026
Okay.
and over 8% by fiscal year 2030.
Ambitious targets.
They are, but they're approaching this with a clear plan and a strong commitment to execution, and they're being transparent about their financial goals and performance.
Transparency builds trust.
Exactly.
Speaking of stakeholders, what about their shareholders? We touched on this earlier, but it's worth revisiting.
Sure, so they're committed to delivering a total shareholder return of over 30%.
That's generous.
Combination of dividends and share buybacks. They're committed to maintaining positive free cash flow, even after all their investments, to fund these initiatives.
So even while pouring resources into EVs and transforming their business, they're not forgetting about their shareholders.
Nope. And they're planning gradual increases in dividends per share, a sign of confidence in their ability to generate sustainable profits.
They seem to be covering all the bases, electrifying their lineup, innovating in manufacturing, transforming their culture, prioritizing financial health, and shareholder value. It's a lot.
It is a lot to juggle.
With all these moving parts, how can we assess their overall trajectory? What's the big picture takeaway for our listener?
Great question. And that leads us perfectly into the final part of our deep dive.
All right, so where do we go from here? We talked about a lot. Their global strategies, their financials, their plans for electrification, those innovative manufacturing approaches, and even their whole cultural transformation.
It's been a deep dive, for sure.
They're definitely not standing still, that's for sure.
Not at all. Nissan's really in the midst of a major transition, trying to reinvent themselves for like a whole new era of mobility.
Yeah.
They've laid out a bold vision and they've got a solid plan. Plus, they have a history of innovation.
But you know it's not all going to be easy, right? What kind of roadblocks do you think they might hit?
Well, for starters, the competition's fierce. And it's only getting tougher.
Yeah.
New players are jumping into the EV market all the time. Customer needs are always changing. Keeping up with that is a challenge in itself.
Definitely.
And then there's the EV transition itself. It's complex.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Huge investments, constant technological advancements, a fundamental shift in how they manufacture and operate.
So it's not just about having a good plan on paper.
Right.
It's about actually executing it.
In a world that's changing super fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what's the key takeaway for our listener? What does all this mean for Nissan?
It's a story of transformation, that's for sure. Nissan's trying to balance its legacy as a traditional automaker with this ambition to become like the leader in the EV revolution.
That's a tough balance.
It is. They have the vision, the plan, the resources. The question is, can they pull it off?
That's the big question, right? Like
Yeah.
we're watching this high-stakes balancing act.
It is kind of like that.
They're juggling their commitment to their existing customers with this need to embrace new technologies,
Yeah.
cater to this constantly changing market. And they're trying to do all of that while maintaining financial stability
Right.
and creating value for their shareholders.
It's a lot to manage.
It really is.
I think Nissan's journey is a good example of the transformation happening across the whole auto industry.
Yeah.
Their success or failure, well, it'll have ripple effects, throughout the global economy.
So it's not just about understanding Nissan's business.
Right.
It's about understanding how those forces are shaping the future of mobility.
Exactly.
This deep dive has just been a snapshot in time.
Right.
The real story is going to unfold over the next few years as Nissan puts those plans into action.
And deals with all those challenges along the way.
Exactly. So for our listeners, the question to think about is this. Can Nissan successfully navigate this transition?
Yeah, can they balance their legacy with their ambition to really shape the future of mobility?
Only time will tell. But it's going to be interesting to watch, that's for sure.
That's the one thing we know for sure.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Nissan. We've talked about their strategies, financials, innovations, and their big ambitions.
We covered a lot.
We did.
I hope
Hopefully this has given you a better understanding of the challenges and opportunities they're facing.
not just Nissan.
The whole auto industry, as we move towards a more electric and intelligent future. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep those engines running and your minds curious.